Welcome back to the second part of my conversation with Eiman Al Zaabi, spiritual guide and author here on Mentor TV. Enjoy.
For me, first and foremost, a leader has to be someone who has understood who they are. They've done the inner work to know who they are and have done the inner work to understand and live by their own values and to be as true as possible to that.
Let's turn the page and let's look how to apply, your credo, what you're teaching, the approach to life, to surrender, to pain, to creating really something special out of crisis, perhaps, or out of anxiety. And look at the business context. A lot of my community comes from finance, comes from business, and this is where we spend most of our lives. Most of the time is in a business context, sometimes as leaders, CEOs, or managing directors, sometimes as employees, but we're always in a social context where you can definitely feel when there's low motivation, when there's anxiety, especially now during COVID-19, people are afraid to lose their jobs or have lost their jobs or know they will lose their jobs in a few months' time if things won't change. Tell me a little bit about applying your tools, and I want to call them spiritual tools, in a business context for a leader. What should a leader right now really take from what you have to offer to get her team through these anxieties?
Right. For me, first and foremost, a leader has to be someone who has understood who they are. They've done the inner work to know who they are and have done the inner work to understand and live by their own values and to be as true as possible to that. And so you walk your talk. When you're a leader, you have to walk your talk and be able to exhibit that to the people around you and inspire them to be like that, right? And so, and a leader is someone who does not have to be an authority. I don't see that, but I see somebody who's going to guide you along the way. They'll be your companion as you kind of work towards understanding your greatness as an individual in a work context, right? So my approach is in bringing spiritual tools into the workplace is, first of all, live by my own values. Second of all, I would have always a space for coaching conversations. Mm-hmm. Those conversations would happen with my staff, asking them questions about how they are doing, how are they coping, what can I do to make them feel better, right? And open up a space in which they can emotionally open up to me and trust me, and then speak those concerns, and then we address them. Right? There are things, of course, that are beyond your control as a leader. You can't, but you kind of give them the direction, you give them a bit of wisdom to allow them to see things in a different manner. Right? So shifting perspective is a tool that I use. Coaching is a tool that I use. I've done some emotional work with some of them because it was required, and we went through a healing journey and stuff like that. So I would bring that into the workplace as well, understanding that they actually probably need that at that moment. To me, it's all about the expression of life values into the workplace and living to that and walking your talk.
Mm-hmm. So you see a leader like a facilitator to bring out the best in people.
Yes, and walk with them. Yeah, and we're all walking towards a certain goal, and we're a team.
Yes, absolutely. And there, I think the conversation or my question comes into play about purpose. There's so many people that go through life without really finding the purpose. You are in the rat race. You are an employee. You do have your boss, and even if the boss is like you were just describing, living by his own value, being a guide, a facilitator, a carer, responsible, rather than somebody who is dogmatic and just tells you what to do. How do I, as an employee, really open up to that? Because that's not necessarily, again, a culture that is that diffuse amongst businesses in general, to have that very close, even emotional relationship with people your livelihoods and your family livelihood really depends on.
Well, it's up to the leader themselves, right? So you create the space of trust. You create this, first of all, you let them know who you are and what you stand for. And the moment you do, they understand where you're coming from. They know that you're not the typical kind of leader who is going to be like authoritarian and just stating stuff to them, right? But understanding, they could trust you, they could open up to you. And that's where you kind of have your entryway into their understanding of life and where they want to go. Career conversations with your staff is essential.
Yes.
And those are one of the first conversations I would have with every person who joins my team. Who you are, where you're going in life, what is it that you're looking to have by being here, right? And what is your career direction moving forward? And if I feel like someone is kind of lost or they're trying to find their way, I would offer as much guidance as possible. And it might be 1 or 2 or 3 conversations. We also go through a series of probably psychometric assessments just so that they have a lot more personal awareness of who they are. And the more they do that, the more they're sure of, who they are from the inside. And I would help then open them up. And we do a strength-based kind of approach. Because based on looking at your strength, that's how I arrange my team. So I know person ABC has got these strengths. That's the kind of work I would give them, regardless of their job title. I would still consider that. That's just part of it. But a lot of it is based on their own strength, and that opens them up. And it helps them, light up and shine and be excited to come to work.
And be good in what they're doing. Basically, it's like positive reinforcement as, we do with children. You don't say what's not good about them, but reinforce what they have done well and kind of manage around the rest.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
No, that is very, very interesting. I'm sitting here listening to you, Eiman. I'm just thinking, Jesus, every boss, anybody that needs to go into management, whatever they need to do, it really is the focus. It becomes very psychological, and I wonder whether every boss or any person being responsible for a team should actually have, I don't want to say an education, but some knowing about emotional coaching.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the things we do at work, which is design programs for leaders to actually, kind of do that. We teach them emotional intelligence. We teach them how to kind of guide and have the career conversations that they're supposed to be having. Essential, like they could be seen as minimal skills, like, basic foundational skills, but they have no idea how transformative they could be to the culture of your department and the team and the organization, right?
Yeah, I agree.
These would shift, people become a lot more open, a lot more trusting, a lot more energized. So you have, as an individual or as a leader, you have direct impact into the productivity of your company, right?
Yeah. The thing about opening up is always that you make yourself vulnerable. And vulnerability, a little bit like surrendering in a business environment, is not necessarily what you look for, because you're vulnerable. You also show your weaknesses, which you fear might be exploited, be it by the boss, be it by other teammates or potential competition or competitors for, an advance in your own career. How do you consolidate that?
Right. I think to me, surrender is something, as we said, it's something every boss or a person needs to understand, that they're not in total control of their environment, not in total control of the people that work with them, right? And so understanding that you have a role to influence, but not a role to change or control, right? Yeah. And coming from that perspective is that your influence has to be something that is impactful, has to be something that is positive, that propels them forward for a better, let's say, work environment that allows them to feel their best.
Let me quickly interrupt the conversation to say thank you that you are here with me on the channel. If you do enjoy what I'm putting out, the in-depth kind of conversations, then why don't you subscribe and also hit the bell button so I can keep you informed with our newest releases. Thanks for that in advance, and let's get back to the conversation.
Now, as we are wrapping up our conversation, Eiman, I wonder about, we see difficulties, we see crisis around us, and being spiritual, you always ask yourself, you inquire, what does it teach me? What should it teach me? What does it really mean? Where do I have to adjust my own thinking, my own action, and perhaps that of others by what I'm seeing? COVID-19 pandemic. And I've asked this many people before. What do you think, Eiman? The COVID-19 pandemic, the way it's unfolding, also the way people are reacting right now across the globe, be it the ones on the street, be it the leaders, on the top. What do you think COVID-19 should teach us?
First of all, I think whatever is happening is people you're seeing people are feeling that the rug is being pulled from underneath us. The life that we knew before no longer is going to exist in the future. Mm-hmm. I think this is a turning moment. It has been happening for quite a few years now. It's not like the pandemic has actually caused this, but everything was leading up to this actual obvious moment that we all see. A change in world, how should I call it? A change in the world systems, where systems are starting to collapse. Our social systems, our economics, our political systems, everything is starting to kind of fall down. And to me, I believe anything that is not based in truth will have to collapse at the end of the day, mm-hmm. Right? Perfect. Only truth remains, right? And so people should understand that after the World War II ended, we have been blessed by a sense of stability, right? And it probably is a false sense of stability because a lot of people, that's when the Industrial Revolution started and people started to have jobs and economic growth started and systems were built based on that, right? And we also had for the last 100 years stable weather, and that kind of caused us to have consistent seasons and understand that there is seasonality, and we predicted it when we depended on it for our food supply, right? But to know that was actually, we were lucky to have that space of stability. But what I want people to know is that where you're going forward with the ability to adapt as a human being, yes. To understand, from here on, it's no joke, right? From here on, I'm going to do the best that I could do to be in service, to be the best that I could be to the people around me, to live up to my life values and to my life purpose. That's the best I could do. That's the best that I could influence, moving forward. And whatever inside of me, whether that being love, or that being fear, it's going to come out. And that's what you see in the streets right now. People are just dumping whatever they have inside of them as a result of being in fear, right?
Yeah.
And the adjustment, and what I would call people to do right now, is to have that mental and emotional and spiritual adjustment from within to what's to come, right? And to no longer play the game of being a victim.
Yeah.
Nothing like that, but just to say, what, I acknowledge this is happening. I acknowledge that, stability is no longer going to be, part of the equation, but to understand that instability is going to be, part of the coming equation, because we can see that there's a trajectory. Things are kind of coming out and falling down. And you'll be naive to think that things were going to go back to normal, right? And that's also part of if you read the World Economic Forum, you'll see that there are predicted crises in the future. And we're talking about, I think it was a 2019 report that shows, there are more likelihood of socio-political unrest. There's likelihood of, let's say, climate change related refugee crisis. There's so many things that could be coming our way. So an adjustment needs to happen from within right now for every human being living on this planet to know that, I'm going to be on the side of truth. And I'm going to be on the side of moving towards restoring this planet, towards restoring who we are, restoring our humanity, which we are starting to lose, right? To be moving towards understanding, I'm going to do the best for myself and for my children and for the few generations that will come forward.
Yeah.
So that would be, that's my message to the people, whoever you are and whoever you're watching, you need to make that internal adjustment right now before it's too late.
Yeah. And one thing that resonates with me, what you just said, we all thought, things were stable, they seemed stable. And one fundamental law of the universe is that everything moves in cycles, and actually that the cycle is stability. You have to accept that. And if you accept that concept as a basis, you can see differently, you perceive differently also difficult times and your own behavior, because it will have a knock-on effect, which eventually will circle back.
Absolutely. And if you know that a complex and intricate system as a universe, as big as that is, we have chaos within it, right? Chaos is the norm, by the way. It's not the exception. Chaos is the norm, and chaos means unpredictability, right? And unpredictability happens when the system kind of needs to shift or change or make a turn. And prior to that, you have chaos, and then back to stability and movement, and then chaos again, and then stability. And that's how the system kind of gains strength, gains kind of resilience. And we're in a state of which we built a life and a world that is not based on so much truth, as we all know, and it's based on human greed, on human capitalism of wanting to have more, and of wanting to be so individual to the point that I don't care about the people around me, right? That has to fall down for a new system to emerge. But it's up to you and me, Patricia, to kind of wake up to that understanding and create the new life that we all want to have for ourselves and for our children. So the ball is in our court right now. It's not in the hand of politicians, not in the hand of the crisis or whoever it might be at power right now, but it's in the hand of you and me.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a self-responsibility, and a sense of self-responsibility, I think, is extremely empowering. If nothing else, if you need to pick me up, you can say, okay, actually, I do matter, and my actions, my thoughts, my intentions do matter, and not only for me and my environment, but for generations to come. And this is the moment now.
Absolutely. It's not a cliche. It's no cliche we're talking about here. It is a truth.
Yeah, try it. You'll see, actually, it really does change a lot, not only from within, but also you see the environment responding very differently. Eiman, before I let you off, the 3 key learnings, looking back at your own life, which you also pass on, which are always included when you speak to your coachees, for example, or also the business people you train, perhaps some CEOs in their life coaching. What would you say the 3 key learnings you want to leave us with?
First of all, understand that life is precious, and understand, you're here to find and connect to God, yourself, and your soul, and then your expression in that would be to be of service to others, right? That to me is a very important kind of baseline that everybody needs to come from. Another one would be that we should be as adaptable as possible in the face of crisis, in the face of change, and to create a state of understanding that we could be resilient. We are not fragile. We are resilient beings. And resilience is something you do through your mindset, through your spiritual understanding of life, and through your understanding of who you are, right? And so that to me is going to take you a while to get there, but it doesn't mean that you won't get there. It's just about inquiry, what we talked about, would be a great tool for you to kind of get to that space. And the last lesson would be is that, being loving and kind is a nice thing.
Nice thing. It's not a weakness. It's not a weakness.
It's a nice thing at this time in the world, because there's so much suffering right now, and so many people are going through so much. And being loving and kind and compassionate is what your neighbor probably needs at the moment, right? What your mother probably needs, or what your dying father probably needs, right? So loving kindness is what is required at this time. So that's what I would leave you with.
Eiman, excellent. Thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, and for these 2 books, The Art of Surrender, of course, and Finding Grace, Daily Comfort for Uncertain Times. I wish you the best of luck. And I think the way you have, organized, developed in your own life is amazing, a true inspiration. So thank you so much for sharing us here.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for having me. It was great being here.
And thank you, dear Mentor It to Me community, for joining us yet again for a great conversation, this time with Eiman Al Zaabi. I hope you're going to stay with us for the next show coming up soon.